Right, we are live. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the Kiwi Lads channel. We are back for the Summer Nations series, the games that these sides will be playing before heading to France for the Rugby World Cup 2023. This one, a two-match series between Scotland and France. Scotland, they've gone with a strong lineup here. France have made a lot of changes compared to what we will probably see in their first game of that Rugby World Cup, so it should be a very entertaining one taking place from Murrayfield. I've heard that the weather's not flash there at the moment as the coverage is just about to pick up here in New Zealand, but looking through at the Scottish lineup, they are hoping to come into this game with a victory, and the thing is, they come in as favourites for this matchup against France, which does not happen too often. Pierre Schoeman, Ewan Ashman and Xander Fagerson as the front row for Scotland, so very strong in that department. Richie Gray and Grant Gilchrist going to be the lock-in duo. Matt Fagerson, Hamish Watson and Jack Dempsey, the loose forwards for this game. Ben White at number 9 with Finn Russell at 10. He will be trying to add that electric style that he brings, the elusive, the unpredictable that is Finn Russell. Sione Tuipulotu at number 12. Hugh Jones on his outside at number 13. Then Duan van der Merwe at 11. Darcy Graham at 14. And of course, earlier on in the year, we did find out about the retirement of Stuart Hogg, which does mean that Blair Kinghorn now gets that massive opportunity to come in as the 15. He has actually played a little bit of 10 in the most recent Guinness Six Nations, so I don't think he'll go too badly at number 15 for this one as well. But looking through at this French lineup, and when I say they've made some changes, they've made a lot. Jean-Baptiste Grue in the front row alongside Pierre Bougeret and also Demba Bamba as the front row for the French. Now, these guys are going to be strong at scrum time, which is exactly why Scotland, I believe, if they were going to make a lot of changes in the rest of their side, they still would have had to go with a relatively strong front row to be able to counter the French fullback. Cameron Waki at number 4 and Chalareau at number 5. And number 6, they have gone with Paul Bodihint. Hopefully I've said that correctly, but I feel like I might be a little bit scratchy with some of these French names for this match. Sekou Makalou, the representative for Stade Francais, and Tanga at number 8 and the fullback. Couliou at number 9 with Jalibert at 10. Mofana and Gaileton in the midfield. Demotier out on the left wing. Bailey Barry out on the right. And Bryce Doolan, the La Rochelle fullback, goes in at number 15. So two strong sides. Quite a few changes. The question is, will I last the whole game, says Novmum. Of course, this game taking place at 2:08 a.m. New Zealand time. So a relatively late night game for us here in New Zealand, but we are also going to be covering that game a little bit later on between Argentina and South Africa, while also keeping you guys updated with what is happening in England versus Wales and Italy versus the Irish. Will be great for Scotland. They can put in a dominant performance against France, says Mr. Fantastic AJ. I guess the risk that Scotland have here is because they've gone with such a strong lineup and the fact that France haven't really gone with their side that a lot of people were expecting. It means there's added pressure on Scotland, because if they don't win this game, then I feel like a lot of people, I'd like to think they wouldn't be giving up on them, but there is that chance that before the World Cup, people say, oh, Scotland not quite where they need to be. And of course, they're in a tough group with Tonga, South Africa and Ireland. They're going to have to make sure they're playing some good rugby, which hopefully they will be able to do in this game. According to the TAB, Scotland are favourites. They certainly are, about $1.60 or $1.70, somewhere around there, with France coming in as the underdogs. And that is due to it being played at Murrayfield, alongside the fact that France have made so many changes. For Jack Dempsey, there's a name for the boxing fans. Says Nazi Williams. Quite a bit of boxing, quite a bit of combat sports in general, actually, taking place over this weekend. Of course, that big fight, they were actually just showing it before, Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. We're going to get to see, I believe, Rob Font is in action for the UFC for their fight night. WWE, I think they've got SummerSlam as well coming up. So a lot happening in the world of not just sport, but just in the world in general, which means that there's going to be a lot of excitement around these rugby matches. We still get to see Wales versus England, like I mentioned, later on tonight, as well as Ireland versus Italy. Romania, they will be playing the USA at 5 a.m. and then Chile taking on the Argentina B side. That will be at about 9 a.m. New Zealand time. And then there's one other game, which is going to annoy me that I can't remember. So we're going to have a look. I think it's Uruguay versus someone. Uruguay versus Namibia at 9 a.m. for that game. So plenty of rugby action happening around the world. We will be covering some of it on the channel, but also keeping you guys updated with what is happening in the other games that we aren't covering on the channel. But Murrayfield, even though people were saying it was looking wet earlier on, I don't see any rain just currently. They may also just be the cameras in this case. But at Murrayfield, of course, Scotland, they're going to have that home field advantage in terms of the support from the fans, and they will need it in this game up against this French team that have made so many changes but can still be strong. That is something that we talked about in the All Blacks versus Australia game. All Blacks making a whole heap of changes. They didn't really gel, though, in the early stages, so I wonder if that will be the case for this French side and this contest. But do let me know your score predictions in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go Kiwi lads, let's go Scotland, says Blues Nate. And yeah, I think both of these sides, they'll certainly be looking for that quick start. They are just showing Chaleroux going to be playing number 5 for this game in the French team. So, of course, quite a few changes, but they have still got some class players coming off the bench in this game for France. They have got Pito, Malvaka, Wardy and Falatea as the front row replacements, Paul Valimza and Cretin, the 2 other forward replacements, and then Baptiste Serin, Hastoy and Arthur Vincent. A massive opportunity for him after having a long layoff with injury in the international game. Hopefully gets to make a start or get at least a crack in this game. Up against Scotland, Dave Cherry, Jamie Butty and WP now as the Scotland front row. Cummings and Darge, the rest of the forward replacements. And George Horn, Redpath, big opportunity for him. And Ollie Smith as the number 23. The back line, though, for Scotland, it is something to be excited about because we have seen not just the combination of Tui Pelotu and Hugh Jones in the midfield. The back three are Darcy Graham on one side, out on the other wing, Duan van der Merwe, and then also at the back, having Blair Kinghorn. That's France B. Says AS, and let's go Kiwi lads, let's go Scotland. Says Blues Nate there. Or France C. Says AS, and let's go Scotland. Says Blood King. I say 1-12, says Nate. So is that in favour of Scotland, that they are going to win by that 1-12 mark? Of course, in the Six Nations a couple years ago, we did see Scotland manage to get themselves the victory over France. That was without all of the changes as well that we are seeing in this matchup. And it was actually a last-minute little bit of a mistake from Bryce Doolan that ended up costing them that game. He is in the starting lineup for France for this one. But we have just had the French national anthem, which means we are almost ready for this match. Just the Scottish one to go now. And then we are underway for this first game. It almost feels like the Six Nations, which to an extent it kind of is. It's the Summer Nations. There's 6 teams that are kind of competing, but not really in table format. It's more they're just playing each other, getting ready for that Rugby World Cup. Tui Pelotu, there's a good Scottish name. Says Nuzzy Williams and Scotland in there as well from Blues Nate. But these 2 sides, they will be playing off next week as well, I should mention, in an exciting game taking place in France. The same can be said about that Wales-England rematch that will be reversed, though, taking place in England rather than at the Principality. We won't be able to cover the England-Wales game this week, but we will be covering the one next week on the channel. So if you are new, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. But the Scottish national anthem coming to a close now. And we're almost ready for some Summer Nations action, ladies and gentlemen. Who do we think will be the first try scorer? I think that this young French side will come out firing because there's a lot on the line for some of these players. They haven't got themselves secured in that Rugby World Cup squad. So perhaps this could be the game that they are able to do so. I think Sekou Makalu, I always talk about that man's legs being like pistons, how they just keep pumping. I'm going to pick him as the first try scorer if France are able to do so. If it is Scotland, I can see Duan van der Merwe causing havoc down that wing. De Mortier, he's a great defender, but when you've got Duan van der Merwe running at you, can be a whole different story. This game, I'm excited. I feel like I mentioned, it's kind of similar to the Six Nations, except we haven't covered any Northern Hemisphere rugby where it's been 2 Northern Hemisphere sides facing off in a good maybe 6 months or maybe 5 months or so. So it's kind of like, I'm all excited. I got to watch highlights of that Scotland versus Italy game last week, but I didn't get to watch the full game due to, I think I was sleeping during that stage, or actually we might have had a different live stream we were doing at that same time. Sorry. Yeah, in fact, it was South Africa versus Argentina Wee Bonnie Scotland to win 35-30, says Gordon McIntyre. And bets on what cards we'll see, says Mr. Fantastic AJ. Hopefully not a huge amount of cards. And the thing is, if a player gets a red card here, they are almost in that position of, if it's a serious enough offence, they will be missing some of that Rugby World Cup. So you've got to be careful when it comes to that discipline. A few of these players, we know that they'll be physical. Looking at that bench for Scotland and for France, I think the second half is going to be just as entertaining as the first. And the first is just about to get underway. They're showing Sione Tuipulotu there, fired up. Started 10 of the last 12 tests, and I believe he is going to be that starting number 12 for Scotland when they head forward in this Rugby World Cup. Hamish Watson says Blues Nate as the predicting for who will score the first try. Brilliant first name that man has, if I do say so myself. They're showing the test debut here for Galiton on the outside centre role for France. Candoan van der Merwe to score 3 tries. Oh, tell you what, it's a bold prediction, but if he's able to do it, certainly cementing himself in that World Cup squad and also in that starting lineup in the near future. But Ben O'Keefe, the referee in charge of this game. We have got the countdown starting. We're at Scottish Gas Murrayfield. I didn't realise they had a name change. I just know it is Murrayfield, but we're underway, ladies and gentlemen. France wearing the blue, Scotland wearing their away kit, or their alternative strip of the white, and Kinghorn kicks high to get us underway for the Summers Nations Cup. But it's nicely taken inside of the 22 by France. I believe it would have been Pierre Bougeret. So able to take that one quite nicely. Rough pass there early. No, it must not have been Bougeret, because he has just dropped that ball, and the scrum now in favour of Scotland inside of the French 22. How do I watch this, says Sean. Whereabouts are you from, Sean? Do let me know. Hopefully we've got a few people in the chat who will be able to help you out. I know that in New Zealand it's on Sky Sport 1. Amazon Prime, says Mr. Fantastic AJ, so that may be your best option. Come on, France, says Tony. And where's Pinot? And why was the girl playing the bagpipes on the roof during the national anthem, says Aiden. It is normally what they end up doing at Murrayfield. Pinot's not playing because they are resting a few of the French players. You also notice Dupont is not playing in this contest. I mean, the list can go on. They haven't got Gregory Eldred in the front row. We see Pietro Malvaca, but no Julio Marchand, who is the referee. It is Ben O'Keefe of New Zealand for this one. I wonder if Tui can play the bagpipes. Should be the criteria, says Nazi Williams. But the free kick goes to Scotland early on when they scrummage 20 metres out from the French line. It's all come from that early pressure and the drop from, was Bougeret. Play normally very well for La Rochelle. They have found themselves very, very successful over the last couple seasons of not just the top 14, but also alongside that, the Champions Cup, being able to cause some real upsets. I can send a link. I can't seem to find it. For me in New Zealand, I don't think Amazon Prime for the rugby side of things is actually available. But if you just Google Amazon Prime, it should be there. How was cricket today? Did you make a ton, says Aiden. I did not play cricket. We're currently in the off season at the moment. Cricket season starts up in about 2 months or somewhere around there. It's going to be another scrum reset. Seems like a lot of early pressure coming from both side scrums, going down to the front row twice. Only 2 minutes in, and there's going to be a bit of a feeling out process, I would say, between these two teams. Pierre Schoeman, he's actually in the starting lineup. I think I read off... Did I read off Pierre Schoeman in the starting lineup? I think I might have said someone else at number 1 rather than Schoeman. Now feeding the ball in, it's Ben White. Nicely fed in. Now Scotland looking for the big push, but both front rows do go up, and the advantage now in favour of the home side. And they do get the penalty. I believe they will consider taking on that early 3 points here. Any points available in these games. Although it's a tricky one because, yes, you want to be winning these games, but you also want to be trying out things. Do you go for the corner if you're Scotland? And I think they were heavily considering it until Finn Russell says, we take the 3, thank you. And now they'll get the early opportunity to take the lead. And also I wanted to know why New Zealand played badly today. Says Aiden, I think it was down to the fact that they made so many changes expecting for everything to gel so quickly. And I think that's the case with a lot of people. Like the winning margin for the All Blacks, it was 95% likely they win by 24 or more points, according to the New Zealand TAB, which was crazy because, you know, Australia going with a relatively similar side. So I thought that it may have been a little bit closer. But yeah, I think it was just so many changes and also just not quite getting the penalties right early on. But that kick from Finn Russell is over. Scotland now take the lead 3-0 over France after only 4 minutes. Hello, Hamish. I've just cooked a chicken. I hope Scotland can do too, says Eric there. I actually cooked some chicken tenders a little bit earlier on, and one of them was in the shape of a male appendage, which was interesting. So I put it in the fridge, and it's sitting in there alongside a couple other chicken tenders, of course, but it does look relatively similar. I'll show George in the morning the chicken tender, that is, and see if he can see the relation. Ben O'Keefe, New Zealand ref, says Blues Nate, and be rolled back now inside of the 22 by Scotland, and Ben White looks to actually pass it across to Finn Russell, who goes for the cross kick attempt, but it is going to be sitting up nicely for France. Dumertier now tries to fend off one. He's taken down by Sione Tuipulotu, though, driven backwards. And All Blacks teasing those Wallabies out there, cheeky. So here's Blues Nate, and chuck it on Trade Me. I mean, to be fair, I've seen people do things like that in terms of raising money for, like, kind of, it's normally some sort of charity. I feel like it could be an idea. Although, how do you keep a chicken tender from going bad other than keeping it in the fridge? You'd have to have a very short auction, I guess, so that it doesn't go wrong. Is George sleeping at yours? No, he's at his house, but he will be coming around tomorrow morning. I think we're going to be climbing a hill or climbing a mountain or something is the plan. That's going to be knocked backwards by Scotland, who still have this ball. Ewan Ashman manages to clean it up, and now Duan van der Merwe breaks towards the line, but he is taken down nicely in the tackle by Kuyu on the short side. Ewan Ashman. There's a lot on the line for a few of these players, like I mentioned. Only 33 men can head to France, and not all of these men will make it. And cockerel shaped, it's an omen, says Eric. Nice run forward from Blair Kinghorn, joining the line from fullback Kuyu. Going to make the tackle there. Another big spin, and it's a knock-on from Matt Fagerson. And France now will have themselves the scrum feed. The famous rasp. Uten Lost Penis says, a rooster and saw an orange with a thumbs-up shape for sale the other day, says Nazi Williams. Fagerson just popped out of his hands. It wasn't even really the tackle that caused it. Sadly, it was just the fact that he decided to hold it in one hand while the odds so close when the Springboks should walk all over them, says Aiden. It is because of the last game that they played. It was a lot closer than people were anticipating, and the Springboks going with a much different looking side compared to what they had in their last game. And yeah, I think that is why the odds are a lot closer, because of the Springboks not having their full strength lineup, having a lot of changes, similar to what we saw for the All Blacks. And that's why the game between the Wallabies and the All Blacks in the TAB odds should have been a lot closer, I feel. Now, Kuyu feeding the ball in for France here. What happened to the Brumbies? Says Nazi Williams for Master Mal. Now, it has gone down in the front row already for a third time in this match. Afternoon from Dublin. Already on the Guinness, says James Cody. Yeah, Italy going to be taking on the Irish a little bit later on today. We won't be able to cover that one on the channel with the live commentary, but we will be giving you guys updates of that game while we are doing the other match between South Africa and Argentina. So be sure to stay tuned for that. The same can be said about that England versus Wales game. We will be doing that same thing for that match. Hamish Watson can play in all three of those positions in the loose ball trio. Prefers the 7. Is normally pretty strong when he gets any sort of space. But Kuyu looks off to the left-hand side. Now they actually fire it back into the pocket behind the scrum. Now looking for the kick of mine was Jalibert. Little bit of a mistake from Blair Kinghorn, but it has still rolled backwards, so it's play on, and he's caused a line break because of it. Jack Dempsey, big shot on him. Coming in from the French defence, and they win the penalty. Tunga putting in the big hit. Holding on to the ball. Penalty goes the way of France. Who's old enough to remember when babes were called chicks? Says Eric. and champion James Chur, and Uruguay versus Namibia. Insights from the man himself, Hamish. No idea about those two. I'd assume by now, though, Aidan, you have given up on the old betting department, seeing as it was causing you a lot of problems the last time we saw you. I don't even know if they've got betting odds for that game, though, depending on whereabouts you are in the world. I know that Australia may consider it, but I don't think they've got it here in New Zealand for that matchup. But Argentina B also going to be taking on Chile. I'm looking forward to seeing Luciano Gonzalez, Rodrigo Isgro, those type of lads in action. Rolling Mole now starting up for the French. On this one at the back is Bougaret. Now Kuyu hanging on to this one. In fact, he's given it back to Bougaret. They both had their hands on the ball, still going forward. Ben O'Keefe tells them to use it. It's a knock on there from the young number 14. Bit of a mismatch in that department. He was smashed in the tackle, just like Mofana was able to smash the Scottish number 13. Kick downfield from Finn Russell. Nicely kicked in behind. Now Bryce Doolan, a lot of space. Looks for the 50-22, but Scotland do have cover back there. And now Darcy Graham boots it high. It's just drifting towards the touchline, but stays in the field of play. Now kick low from France. Coming a bit of a territory battle, although Scotland do have 3 men back in their 22, so they can decide to run this out if they wanted to. Instead, Finn Russell, though, goes for that boot off the back, or in fact off the side of the boot, making it an awkward spinning one. And in the end, Jalibert has no option but to kick it into touch. Territory battle goes the way of the Scottish. I remember last year, Suki Lala blamed Hamish, says Blues Nate. I have for now, yeah, the odds are Uruguay are the favourites. Says Aidan there. But yeah, Uruguay versus Namibia. I'm curious to see how Namibia go, just because we haven't actually seen anything really from them as of late. Uruguay, I believe they'll have a few of those sevens boys scattered throughout their team also. Scotland 45 metres out, Ashman. Going back across to the left-hand side here for Scotland. Big flat run from Sione Tuipulotu, the crash ball specialist at 12. And speaking of crash ball, Pierre Schoolman driving straight at that man at number 5, Chaleroux. Now to the left. In fact, Finn Russell showing a little bit of skill, catching it behind his back. Darcy Graham tackled low by Kuyu. At the moment, the French defence has been looking very strong, not allowing Scotland to make easy meters. 20-plus points for the French. Says Chronic. Is that based off the lineup that you see here, Chronic, or is that based off the lineup that you think France have gone with? Out of curiosity, because I know that there is a big split normally in people's opinions because of all the changes that France have gone with. Can't wait to watch Portugal in the Rugby World Cup. I know they won't be amazing, but I don't get to watch them and never have seen them before play, so can't wait. And they're actually a pretty strong side. They've had some good games up against the USA in the past. Wide cut-out pass here from France, and now the opportunity down the wing, inside ball. One more pass across, and Kuyu scores for France. They strike first at Murrayfield in the try department, and Kuyu was ready for it. Brilliant backline. Managed to get it out wide to Bailey Barre, and then from there, inside ball twice. Now, that was actually very unselfish from Mathieu Jalibert, because he easily could have decided to just have the run at the line himself, but because he felt he was lacking that little bit of pace, saw Kuyu on the inside and thought, well, this is an easy option for me here. But it was initially Kuyu who got the back line underway, couple quick passes in the midfield, and then it was a great ball from Jalibert to finish the job for Kuyu. And that is going to be the first try of the contest for France. A great bit of pace shown there. I believe that was actually Guilleton. He's actually on debut for this match. Kuyu, like I've mentioned, doesn't normally get too many opportunities in a starting lineup. That is mainly because there's a man by the name of Antoine Dupont who normally gets the nod. But a great bit of work there from France. Now sitting 12 minutes into the contest, and it is 7 points to 3. And oh well, says Mr. Fantastic AJ. And by law, there has to be a red card in this game. For some reason, there is a red card in this fixture every year. Feels like it, says James Cody. So is that normally the Six Nations that we see a red card between these two teams, or just in general? And either way, France is very strong, mate. They have a very good league, says Chronic Underachiever. And That's the thing. So far, this backline, Gailleton, Louis Bailey Bayari, I believe is his name, out on the wing. They just seem to be able to click so quickly, even though they've been playing for separate sides throughout the top 14. Who scored for the French? It was Baptiste Couriou, the number 9, who was able to score the first try of the contest. But currently France sitting about 15 metres out from their own line. Couriou will roll it back, the try scorer, and look to get some decent distance on this one. Partially charged down by Scotland, which I believe will mean that France, although they've taken that one quickly there, Scotland, and it's play on. I believe that was charged down. But the referee seems to have decided that it is going to be continued. And Scotland now in possession. That was very smart by Finn Russell if it was charged down, to use it quick enough that the referees couldn't decide. And now Pierre Schoeman going off to the right-hand side here. Flat ball to Hugh Jones, who's nailed in the tackle by this big, solid French defence. Russell again going across to Grant Gilchrist. Around the side, Gray decides to have a bit of a crack. Now, Finn Russell shifting it left on Van der Merwe. No space to work with, but somehow just manages to stay in the field of play. Now Xander Fagerson. Good face play currently from Scotland, up to 8 in a row. Russell goes across to Hamish Watson. His first carry of the day. Now, Russell again on the outside. Flat pass out to Darcy Graham. Shut down pretty quickly by, I believe it would have been Dumitier on that side, although Couriou is a little bit slow getting up in the process. And best atmosphere in the world rugby when Scots sing national anthem at Murrayfield. Says Gordon, very, very emotional. Yeah, you can hear the passion in the voices of the crowd, and that's going to be an intercept for France. There was almost a chance for Scotland at the other end of the field, but it was intercepted, now kicked downfield by France, and Hamish Watson gets it on the halfway line. Running at Pierre Schoeman. His teammate now, Schoeman, is in support. Off to Blair Kinghorn. Had a couple good runs so far throughout this match, and also finding the offloads. Jumping on that one was Pierre Bougaret. And France back in possession. Ball pops out the side. Advantage now for the knock-on. Kicked him behind by Jalibert. The young number 14 chasing after this one hard. And they'll go back for the original penalty. And Scotland says, Gareth, looks like an injury here for Ben White. I think he's been crushed in the process of the tackle by Louis Biarri. Is it a full? Yes, I believe it is pretty close to full for this one. In the Six Nations, there is a red between these teams, and I feel like every year, says James Cody. So luckily, this is the Summer Nation, so maybe we break the chain for this match and didn't expect France to score the first try, says Billabro. Okay, they're talking about maybe direct contact with the head of the Scottish number 9, Ben White. So this could actually end up maybe with the red card that you've talked about. But I believe it's just going to become a penalty in favour of Scotland, a mistake from the young number 14. I'm rooting for Scotland today. Not a fan of the French team, even though I used to be. I admire skill, not arrogance. Says Hangarat. Oh, that's a good shot to the jaw of Ben Wright. Probably lucky to just be the penalty there. Like they've said, it's a swinging arm to the face. Do they need to have another look at this? I think Ben O'Keefe and his TMO side, it looks like it is going to be continued on. It's kicked into touch by Scotland. Probably lucky for the right winger. And come France, another try, says Atanet. In there. Commentators feel that he might have gotten away with that one. It was the arm swinging right round the head of Ben White. Now Ewan Ashman. The line out throw. So we've still got a little bit more of a stoppage that is due to that Ben White injury. Time back on, says Ben O'Keefe. We're 17 and a half minutes through this game. It's been a fast start. Scotland have had some good moments on attack, but are yet to get themselves their first try. Whereas for France, they have been able to cross the line with Baptiste Couriou. And now charging forward, number 6. I believe it is Borhent. Something along those lines. The blindside flanker anyway. And how is that not reviewed for a card? It is surprising, definitely because we've just seen a game between Fiji and Japan where everything went to the TMO. In this case, they have done the opposite. Now nice run from Duan van der Merwe. Breaking the line, moving up to 40 metres out from Scotland's try line here. Now White going back across to Finn Russell, who looks to put the kick in behind. An awkward one, but France managed to clean it up quite nicely down that wing with Jalibert. Now kicked in behind. Waiting for the bounce. It's an awkward one, but Scotland able to handle it. Looks like Finn Russell will look towards the touchline. Come on, Duan. Says hanger rat, kick downfield from Scotland, and now France, about 43 metres out from Scotland's line, will have themselves another line out here. It's still only 4 points difference between these two sides. Early days in this fixture. So, of course, there's still plenty of time to work for both of these teams. Some deep breaths being taken, though, by Bryce Doolan there. And that is mainly because of the pace that this game has been played at throughout the early stages. 19 minutes in, not many breaks. We saw a few early scrums, and they really were relatively close. Both front rows going down consistently. Now France have been able to retain that line out, although it was tricky with the loose ball. Sekou Machalou now drives around the side of the breakdown. In fact, it would have been Tanga. Machalou still yet to get himself a carry in this game, but when he does, we will certainly know about it. He's got some great leg strength, normally drives forward hard. Now the ball rolls out the back. Going to be off to Kuyu again, now Bugaret. Tackled by Watson. Kuyu slings it off to Mo Fana, almost through the gap. Now Salah, the dummy. Kuyu making more meters. He has been sensational throughout the early stages of this game. Tanga, bit of a loose ball, but it is picked up now by Sekou Machalou. 15 metres out from the line. Tanga doing well with that drive. I think we are so close to the World Cup. Accidental contacts with the head will become yellow so players can play in the World Cup. That's my theory, says James Cody. And yeah, I mentioned it at the start of this game. Any red cards now get you in trouble. Brilliant run down the wing from Mo Fana, but I believe his foot was just in touch as he reached out to put the ball down. Foot in touch is a call from Beno keeper. Mo Fana just accelerated. Went from about first gear to fifth in under 2 seconds, which then caused a lot of problems for this defence. But Duan van der Merwe just pins the ears back enough to push him into touch. Scotland now retaining that ball off the line out 10 metres out from their own line. They've been under a lot of pressure. Territory-wise has been going the way of France for this first 20 minutes or so. Ben White now putting the ball high. Does manage to find the touchline. Do they take it quickly? They don't decide to in the end. Territory gain of 32 metres there for Scotland. 40 metres out from the line, France with another line-out opportunity. But we have currently seen one try in this game. Baptiste Kuyu, the first try scorer. If anyone else has a prediction for who we think will be the next try scorer in this game, do let me know. But at the moment, the way that this momentum is going, it does seem likely that it could be once again another French player. The question is, how many three-pointers would France consider within kicking distance? Or will they go instead for the corner to try and get that rolling Morgan? A nice kick in behind from Jalibert, just looking for a bit of open space. Gets it off to Duan van der Merwe, who now tries to step. He's putting himself under pressure here, just out from the Scotland line, but has run right across the field and opened up the opportunity for Hugh Jones out on the other wing. Looked a little bit ginger getting back up to his feet there, Duan van der Merwe, though, after that acceleration right across the field. Now rolling this ball back, Ben White looking to put this ball up high just inside of his 22. I believe they're actually able to kick this one out on the full, if I'm not wrong, but it does just go next to the touchline. France now attacking from the halfway line. Big run forward from Bryce Doolan. It's been busy throughout the first 22 minutes. Kuyu looked to the left and instead decides to go to the right-hand side. Demba Bamba, bit of a juggle there, but still manages to hang on to that ball. And they've got a new advantage here, France, for no rolling away from Scotland to the left. Bryce Doolan with the chip and chase, trying to pierce his way through, picked up by Russell, and they'll go back for that original advantage. I thought the bunker had been introduced so that the game gets restarted and the TMO passes any question that he deems needing of further investigation to the bunker. Gave 10 minutes to issue a card, says Finton. I know that in Super Rugby Pacific, they have how if you get a yellow card, they've got about 7 minutes to be able to look and see whether or not it can be upgraded to a red. I believe those new rules, though, if we're talking about the ones that are getting added for the World Cup, have not come into tuition just yet. We've still got to wait about a month and a bit. What games you doing? Says Jack. Wales, England prediction. Scotland, France prediction. says Jack. So we are going to be doing the South Africa versus Argentina game a little bit later on. But during the build-up of South Africa-Argentina, we will be letting you know what's happening in the game between England and Wales, as that will be taking place at the same time as that build-up. And for prediction-wise, I think England will be strong enough, even though it's at the Principality Stadium. I see England getting over the line. For this game, I mean, France have started extremely well. They came in as underdogs for this game. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they can cause that upset. But Scotland still have a lot left in their gas tank. And I'd like to think that with the players that they've gone with in the starting lineup, they have got a chance later on in this game to be able to fire back. Apparently the Union Bunker really did Fiji dirty in that Fiji game. Now it's nicely run, and it's the number 14 who gets over the try line. The man who might be lucky to be out there on the field at the moment after his earlier tackle, but it is Louis Bieli-Mbare who has been able to score the try. I'm sure I butchered that name pronunciation, but he has been able to get himself the try in this matchup. Apparently, oh no, I read that one. Would you prefer Six Nations or the Rugby Championship? They are both very different, but we do cover both on the channel, so I'm very lucky in that regard that I either stay up in the middle of the night and watch the Six Nations, or I cover the Rugby Championship also in the middle of the night. So we just stay up late. I think it's the best way of describing it. And it's called Cool Finton. I love how you say Jalabert. Says Timmy Smith. And France just won the Under-20 World Cup in convincingly fashion. They blew everyone away. Their talent is incredible, says Jack Lewis. Yeah, they've got a bright future, France. And another bright future player is this youngster on the wing. Now got himself the try. And Wales 20 for the 18 of the English, says Gordon for his prediction there. Now Mathieu Jalabert got the opportunity to line up this kick. He's set him from 1 from 1 so far throughout today. It was a relatively tough kick though, near the touchline. About 29 metres out on the angle, I'd say. Maybe a little bit longer, about that 32. And he's kept it right, and it's come round beautifully just inside of the posts. And that'll make the score now 14 points to 3 in favour of France. They've scored 2 quick tries, and they've looked dangerous while doing so. Their backline has been crisp. It's been effective, and Scotland just can't get out of their own half as we currently sit. At least a Wales loss means Fiji stay in 9th, or else it's 10th ranked. And I'm just enjoying the morning glory here after too much cover the previous night, says Simi Souza. And France have schools centred around rugby, though. It shows how well they work. Yep, they've got a very good young, I guess, academy system that they've got. And I think we're going to see that over the next few years, that France really continue to go from strength to strength. Is it Scotland? Can't get the ball wide, says Eric. I think at the moment, anytime they've had the ball, it's mainly been inside of their half, so they have had to kick that one back towards the French. Finn Russell, he's been struggling to find those men on the outside. Gregor Townsend not looking too happy about it at this point. But this was not the start that Scotland were after in this game. Definitely not when they came in as favourites for this matchup. At the line-out throw, Ewan Ashman goes in nicely to Gray. And the rolling ball makes those few extra metres here for the home side. See there, I believe that's Cameron Walkie just having a real big conversation with the ref, asking whether or not there is going to be the opportunity to turn it over. And also we have got there his name for prisoner sent away on boat. Criminals such as stealing a loaf of bread a few centuries ago, says Gordon there. And Borthwick made some strange selections, especially in the forwards. I think it'll be closer than people think away on Wales at full strength. It's nicely taken inside of the 22, the mark taken by Bryce Doolan. Wales at full strength, we have 4 or 5 rested real key players, says Jack. No wonder they flipped out on hosting the League World Cup, hindering its growth beyond Australia and Northern England. Russell can kick past brilliantly. Hope he gets a good one in. And one hasn't gone into touch from France. Russell goes across to Duan van der Merwe. I would be very surprised if that man puts the ball on the boot. It's going to be a high tackle made by Sekou Makalu. So Scotland now have got themselves the penalty advantage. Hugh Jones tries to chip it in behind, and it goes back for the penalty now in favour of the Scottish. And I think they need to make the most of this opportunity, go towards the corner, try and really apply pressure to this French side, because they did the right thing in the first maybe 5 or 10 minutes. They were able to do so. But Duan van der Merwe As soon as the tackle happened, he threw his hands up in the air. He looked to the referee and said, "I've been shot." Which is something I didn't expect from him. I feel like he's one of those players who would just take the hit and then realise afterwards that he had been clotheslined. Now, sitting about 25 metres out from the line, Scotland with the line out. And where is Russell next year? I think Bath, am I right? I believe so. I think he is heading to Bath. For this one, points per visit to the 22 so far for France is 4.7. Time in opposition 22 for Scotland is only 18 seconds. So not exactly enough time to be able to create too many opportunities. But Ewan Ashman now throws it in nicely to Grant Gilchrist. Ashman looping around, back across to Ben White, bounce past to Sione Tuipulotu. This back line's looking good now. Blair Kinghorn joins the line, decides to cut towards that French defensive line 10 metres out. Mistake there from Scotland. Hamish Watson, though, able to regather, although a huge amount of pressure coming in now. And it looks like it is going to be called as a tackle. A little bit of push and shove there between Matt Fagerson and his opposite number, and they'll go back for the penalty. It's in favour of France for taking out a man off the ball. And got both Scottish and French heritage. Who do I back today? I'm South African. So we'll just go for the box, or go with the box later. Says Hillary. I know a lot of people would probably make the joke now that, I mean, if you're going for South Africa, you could look at the Scottish side with a few names that they have got. That is always one that I've seen in these chats. But, yeah, Scotland, very dangerous side, and they haven't quite been able to get the best of this first half. Second half just around the corner, and that is when they'll really have to start making some meters. I'm 100, Mike, south of the border. Can't wait for the Imperial measures to come back, says Eric. Now line out throw for Pierre Bougeret. Looks like Ben White will now be making his way off the field. That is due to an injury. He's been hit hard multiple times in this game, and it looks like maybe some sort of leg injury is actually the reason he's making his way from the field. So hopefully nothing too serious. George Horn now makes his way onto the field, though, to replace him. Now going off to the left-hand side. Nice passing. Mo Fana puts it in behind, trying to go for that chip from France, putting themselves under pressure every once in a while here with the kicking game. And now Bougeret kicks it off his right boot, the number 2. That is something you don't see every day of the week. A hooker looking for the territory kick. Now kick back downfield. Doolan takes it inside of the 22. Looks to kick it off his left boot. Close to the touchline here, and it might just stay in the field of play. It does. Darcy Graham cleans that one up. He was probably caught a little bit out of position. Lucky that that ball bounced the way that it did. That one's going to be kicked into touch by Finn Russell. Was he outside of the 22? Or is he all right here? Seems like it is going to be all right, and now France have got themselves the line out once more. And right and all, from a wet and windy UK, rough as rats, out just now, says Kerno Wick. Yeah, the weather, it sounds like it's a bit rough up north. It actually was supposed to be raining at Murrayfield, I believe. But luckily, it doesn't seem like it's too wet just currently for this game. Come on, fire up, Thunder Merva. Says Blues Nate Elkers always look for their territory, says Nazi. And does my 20-point prediction looking like from what you've seen so far? Says Chronic, to be honest, the way that France have started this game, they are looking very strong, and they do seem like any chance that they get on attack where they're able to get their line break does lead to at least the 5 points on the board. Now a big fin from Demba Bumba, quickly recycled. It will be Chalareau, finds his offload away to the young inside centre on debut for this game. Gailleton now available for Hamish Watson, going across to the left-hand side here. This is a perfect opportunity for Scotland on the counter-attack. Wide cut-out pass, but it's forward, and that's going to hurt them. Scotland continuing playing. George Horn was going to be running in the try if it hadn't been for. They're still going. Duan van der Merwe, the crowd are cheering for him. It's unfortunate because he's going to realise that it's no try. He's just looked back, and it is going to be a Scottish scrum conceded. Crowd are booing it. Forward pass, unfortunately, from that skip pass for Scotland. Does mean they go right back. It was a good try from Scotland, though, other than the fact that there was that forward pass. We are seeing here in the breakdown, just disrupting it, was Xander Fagerson, and it bounced out on the side of Scotland. Who was the big wide pass from? I think it was Blair Kinghorn, unfortunately, travelled forward by about 2 metres, and come on, Scotland, says Richard Hardy there. They've won 17 of their last 18 test matches, France, is the stat that they've just mentioned. Who was the one game in those last 18 that France have lost to? Was it Australia? Is that correct in that Australia versus France series? Did they lose one of those games or did they win 3-0? It may have actually been up against the Aussies the last time that France lost in their last 18 games, because Six Nations wise, they've been very strong. Did they win? Or did they lose to Ireland? No. Ireland, yeah, Ireland, there it is. And that was in the last Six Nations, wasn't it? If I'm not wrong. And that's why Ireland managed to take out that Six Nations title. And Aussie, there must be Ireland to win the Six Nations. Says Gordon, it was Ireland. Says Richard in Ireland. Says Finton in there. And France lost to Ireland in Six Nations. Numbnut. Says Timmy Smith. I guess thanks for correcting me nicely, Timmy. Way off topic. But can I just say, try Heartland Tokyo Tang's chips. Man, they are good. And yep, the Six Nations says Ronald there. A nice run forward from, I believe it is going to be Mo Whana again. And yep, the Six Nations says Ronald. Because before that, was it Australia that they were defeated by? I'm sure that Australia won one of those games of the series when they played France. And they all drop kick attempt here from France. He was back in the pocket, hasn't quite got the connection. And who's the Irish here? Says Blues Native is now going to be kicked downfield and going back for the penalty for Scotland. And greetings, Sammy, should drop by to give the stream a like. Thank you very much, mate. Usually appreciated. And yes, we all are here. Says Richard Horry. And of course, Ireland going to be taking on the Italians later on tonight. It's going to be a 7 or so a.m. game here in New Zealand. We will be covering covering South Africa versus Argentina at that time, but we will be keeping you guys updated with what happens throughout the fixture. 34 minutes in, Finn Russell on the 22. Penalty won by Scotland. And they'll kick it downfield, and yes, Ireland. Says Karma Pitch. Going to be nicely kicked into touch. Down to the 50 metres out. Scotland need a try before the end of this first half, I would say. And yes, Ireland, says Karma Pitch, and lots of us Irish here. Says Mountains of Asylum. What's the territory like for the teams? I believe France probably sit with about 70% territory at this current point. That's not an official stat, but just with where the game has been played throughout this half, I would say it's probably 65 to 70 in favour of the French. There's a knock on there in the French breakdown though, and now Scotland get themselves another scrum. Ireland beat France fair and square. Sheehan having a hell of a game that day, says Kernowick. And also we have got there, let's go from Blues Nate. That looks like a serious-ish injury there from Ben White. Sadly got the ice pack on the ankle. Hopefully nothing too serious, and he is still able to make his way to that Rugby World Cup. But by the looks of it here, this ankle is shot, and I don't think that is going to be likely for him, although he's still walking on it at least, which is a good sign. Chris Harris just going over, giving him a handshake, hoping that he's going to be all right. 4 minutes remaining. We got the referee cam here of Ben O'Keefe. Are they going to be doing referee cams throughout the Rugby World Cup, I wonder? Is that something that they'll look at? Stick a GoPro on the chest. It's actually what we do in the cricket department. That is now going to be another scrum reset. Every scrum so far has had that happen. Both go down. Interested in how this French side does. France, one of the biggest threats for Ireland in the Rugby World Cup. Says Ronald, and Sheehan is awesome. Says Karma Peach. I feel like that comment, Ronald, with so many Irish supporters in attendance for this game, I wouldn't be surprised if a couple do reply to you in that regard. Damn, France, just too good. I never know which team pitches up. King great or bad, says Gordon. I love when the umpires do the GoPro in cricket, says Timmy Smith. And thought Chris Harris retired. I don't think he's in the playing side. He was just next to them near the tunnel. He is Karma Peach. So you too. But bloody lethal, in my opinion. It's going to be nicely done by Scotland, winning the penalty at scrum time now. Scrums have not been smooth throughout this first 37 minutes. Your point of view, cricket matches, you posted it awesome, says Timmy. And we've got a few more coming up in the near future. Do you play cricket? Just started playing this summer, says James. I do. So I actually started this year, or actually it was the end of last year, but I've had one season so far playing cricket, or about a half season. First time I played in 10 years, so I was a little bit rusty, but we're slowly getting back into it. Had a couple net sessions in the off-season, hopefully going to go all right during the actual season. And yep, the Irish, says Garrett, and check out Hamish Go Bro cricket scenes. Says Nazi Williams thrown in long, nicely taken by Grant Gilchrist. Now Scotland find themselves 25 metres out from France's line just before the end of the first half. You know, Keith, I think he was warning one of the French players, but that is going to be a French scrum. Sekou Machalou gets his hands on the ball, and when he had that in his grasp, he was not going to be letting it go. I thought it was Leinster. Says Eric there, the winky face. Also, I think I've read the early ones, and yep, the Irish, says Garrett. And yeah, that was the one that I missed. I knew I missed one somewhere along the lines. I did manage to find it. I should mention anyone who is new to the channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. We are going to be covering the next game between these two sides next week that is being played in France, as well as England versus Wales for next weekend's game of rugby. But I hope you guys are all excited for the awesome rugby that we've got coming up over the next month or so. And then we're straight into the Rugby World Cup. It's going to be very entertaining. A closely contested World Cup, I believe, as well. Ireland versus Italy tonight, says Luke Conway. Yep, they are going to be playing off at 7 a.m. New Zealand time. So in about 4 hours' time. Oh, mate, Auckland weather yesterday was magnificent, beautiful. I was at the Switzerland versus Spain soccer game, says Chronic there. Yeah, they've been having some decent weather up north. Currently here where I am, it's 2 degrees Celsius. So a little bit chillier. Gregor Townsend, he doesn't look happy with the way that his team has played throughout this first 38 minutes. They are yet to get themselves a try. They did manage to get that early 3 points, and who knows how important that could be as we get further throughout the match. But it looks like now Baptiste Couillou, they will have the scrum feed here for the French. How are the much vaunted Scottish centres doing? I think that Tui Piloto, he's had a couple decent runs. Hugh Jones, a little bit the same, but probably a little bit more quiet than they would have liked to be. But that is mainly because Scotland have had a lot of defending to do throughout this first half of rugby. Solid defensive pattern, says Blues Nate. And every French or every France side pitches up since Geltz, Rafa and Sean took over. The English have France's old mantle now, which is cool by me, says Kernowek. But that will be now the France penalty. I don't think we're going to see a legitimate scrum throughout this game without an advantage or a free kick. Because that is about the 5th one now that has either gone down in the front rows. Xander Fagerson, the man who's been penalised for that one. Those Spanish soccer wahinis are pretty full. Respectfully, man, says Nazi Williams. Kick now into touch by France. They've got themselves another opportunity here. Bugeret be in charge of trying to get this line out straight. 30 seconds remaining. They are only just inside of Scottish territory, so they may consider kicking this one into touch if it does end up reaching that halftime siren. Now first looking for that rolling maul. Bugeret at the back, waiting to see if this one starts marching, which it now does. It's actually only one player in front of him, so this will be dragged down. The advantage goes in favour of France for it being dragged down illegally. And the penalty is given to the French. Yeah, scrums could be where first yellow card comes from. The way it's going, says Ronald. Yeah, I think the benefit they've got currently is both sides have had yellow, or sorry, not yellow, but both have penalties against them at scrum time. And this is a bold call from the French. They are going for the corner. Rather than taking on the 3 points, they want one last try before the end of the first half. 20 metres from the line. The rolling maul the last time they went to it didn't make a huge amount of metres. Perhaps this time it could be a little bit different. Now Bugeret needs this one to be relatively straight. Goes into the front, nicely taken by Tanga. He's going to be taken out in the air, so that is going to be another penalty advantage now to France. A little bit of an early push, but Couillou look to use. Cameron Walkie instead goes to the man in behind him. I believe that was Jean-Baptiste Grue. Now Bugeret running onto the ball hard and smashed in the tackle by Hamish Watson. Couillou across to Demba Bamba. Tackled by Fagerson. And France currently, they are still playing under that penalty advantage. Short ball there, Mofana. hit hard in the back, but is able to find his offload away to the man in the centres with him, and they'll go back for another penalty here to France. Now, this is a lot easier of a three-pointer if they want it, and it looks like they want to go for the corner again. I believe that was actually Jalabert. He was like, nah, we're kicking it out. We're going to have one last crack. It's gone about 5 metres out from the line. 2 high French tackles, but no yellow, says Krampus. Yeah, they'll consider themselves a little bit lucky. Number 14 for France, when he made that tackle on Ben White, then went on to score a try only about 3 or 4 minutes later. But, yeah, I'd say, to be honest, the one on Duan van der Merwe I didn't see as being anything more than a penalty, but that one of Louis Bailey Bayari, I believe his name is, but yeah, I could have seen that as being at least a yellow for him. And now, looking for the rolling maul here for France again. Sitting 10 metres out from the line after a good push from Scotland. Has forced them back a couple of metres. Bougeret breaking off the back. Hamish Watson's taking a hard knock to the head from his teammate. Little bit of friendly fire there. Now Sekou Machelou tries to drive the legs. They've stuck someone way out wide, I do see. That's over the line, though. They didn't need him. Cutting up the middle. It's Cameron Walkie. And another try coming for France in the first half. The risk that they took by going towards the post and trying to take on the try rather than the 3 has paid off. And they will now sit more than likely 21 points to 3 up at half-time. Greetings from Germany, says the conversation station. Welcome in, mate. If you are keeping well, Sekou Machelou with their run round the side. I thought that they were thinking about shifting it out wide to, I believe it would have been Dumetier on that near side, but they didn't need him in the end. Just picked up by Cameron Walkie, drove hard. Pierre Schulman was too worried about trying to commit him to the breakdown and just crossed right below him. Got themselves the try. Scotland are worse than England, says Krampus. And there, but that is going to be halftime. 21 points to 3 in favour of France. An absolutely terrific first half of rugby from them. Kind of reminds me a little bit of what happened in that Fiji versus Japan game of the Pacific Nations Cup just a little bit earlier on. In terms of one side coming out of the gates firing, the other side struggling a little bit. Scotland, they actually started this match not too badly, having a bit of territory. Then from there, it just seems like they can't quite escape their own halfway. And I think that is going to be something they'll certainly need to work on in that second half. But halftime now, like I mentioned, 21 points to 3. Question to everyone viewing, what do Scotland need to do in the second half? One big thing that they need to change to be able to start countering this French side. I would say their problem at the moment is just not being able to use that backline effectively. I believe France are rushing up quite a bit. So because of that, it does make it harder to get that backline firing. So maybe a couple more set plays, see if that can work in their favour, score tries, says Stuart Moore. I mean, that would certainly help. Although I think we're going to see, or probably need to see a little bit more than that from the Scottish. They need to make sure they're defending, because if France are scoring tries at the same rate that Scotland are in this second half, they will still end up losing this contest. France have too many leaders across the board, most of whom are genuine world class, in my opinion, says Kerno Wick. And also a red card for Ben O'Keefe, says Blues Nate there, and win possible, says Nazi Williams. It's tricky, very tricky from here, but we have seen sides come back from kind of score lines like this before. We're going to need to see a whole new Scottish outfit, though, when they make their way onto the field for the second 40 minutes. Scotland are going to be the tier 1 going out of the group of death, says the conversation station. Wales versus England predictions. Even though it's at the Principality, I just see England sneaking the victory there. And it's the case of 2 new coaches, isn't it? It's going to be Gatlin taking on Steve Borthwick. So 2 men who haven't really had a huge amount of time at the helm, but now going to get the chance to take on each other in this game. Kick over the top by Russell with France are rushing up. Says Finton are not looking good for an A side against the B side at the moment. Says Fleshen. And yeah, I know that a lot of people were talking about it before this game, saying it was a risk for Scotland playing such a strong lineup when France have gone with a little bit more of an experimental side, because it's not going to help the confidence of the Scottish players heading towards that Rugby World Cup if they are beaten by quite a large margin here. But I think players off the bench, they are going to be crucial in this matchup for Scotland. We've already seen one change made of George Horn. That was due to the injury, unfortunately, of Ben White. But off the bench, I'm looking through at these names, and to be honest, for Scotland, I mean, WP Nell and Jamie Buttey might be handy when it comes to scrum time in this one. Redpath, we haven't really seen a huge amount of. Ollie Smith maybe can create something in that midfield for Scotland. Rory Darge, decent player, but who does he come on for at the moment? Maybe Matt Fagerson, who we haven't seen enough of throughout that first 40 minutes. Whereas for France, they've got Paul Valimza, Pieto Malvaka, also Wardy and Falatia, the front row replacements, Hastoy and Vincent. So, yeah, it's gonna be tough for Scotland here. I think the big thing for them is just to try and play a little bit better than they did in that first half. Try and find some chemistry, build up a little bit of smart play, and just keep the ball for a little bit longer, I would say, will help them out. Wales have got nothing to lose in their game versus England today. We will learn a lot, says the Conversation Station. Yeah, these games are the Summer Nations. It's all about working out pretty much what the game plan and what your plan is going to be for that Rugby World Cup. In terms of selection, in terms of tactical, what works, what doesn't, what do we need to change before we get there? England have nothing to lose either. There's Krampus in there as well. Yeah, it's a little bit of a shame that we aren't going to be covering that one on the channel due to that overlap with South Africa versus Argentina, or at least the overlap with the build-up. And next week we will be covering England versus Wales, and hopefully it is a relatively close game this week alongside the other games that are taking place. Here is actually a list of times in New Zealand time with when these games are taking place. This one was kicking off at 2:15 a.m, which does now mean that it is 3:07. Wales versus England at 4:30. Ireland versus Italy starting at 7 a.m. and Argentina versus South Africa taking place at 7:10 a.m. And also alongside that, we've got Romania, USA, Uruguay, Namibia, and Chile versus the Argentina XV. I've already mentioned earlier on about some of the exciting players that Argentina are going to be using in that contest, whether it's Luciano Gonzalez, Rodrigo Isgro, and also a few other players returning recently from injuries that we'll be hoping to make a big impact. A fair comment, Compass, and yeah, you'll learn how bad Wales are. Says Finton, and morning Kiwi lads, just open my eyes. Oh, a French in front. Says Spider Mick and Warren G and G-Funk era. Warren Gatlin, I hope Scotland have a better second half, says Hanger Rat. The good news for them is it can't get much worse, which sounds harsh, but also is relatively truthful for what we saw throughout that first 40 minutes, just nowhere near up to par where they would have wanted to be. Definitely not after they did play last week up against Italy. I thought that may have been what actually gave Scotland the advantage, seeing as the fact that France did not play last week. But this week just hasn't quite been the day of the Scottish. The one in the fridge, of course, says Nazi Williams in there as well. Just currently showing highlights of New Zealand versus Australia. It was an extremely close fixture. Took place earlier on. Both of the games of the Pacific Nation Cup, a lot more one-sided than some people were anticipating. But there's been a lot of rugby on today. And hi lads, thank you for correct. Says John Campbell. Hopefully I've said correctly, or Crete? Is it Crete? I feel like I'm mispronouncing it, but I do appreciate you being here, John. Yeah, I hope you have been enjoying the rugby action for today. It is far from over though. We have still got another game later on tonight that we are doing on the channel. And can't get the game anywhere else, says John there. And just joined who is goal kicking for France. So in this game, they have gone with Mathieu Jalibert, and he is currently sitting 3 from 3 in the kicking department. What the hell is happening with Scotland, says CK. They've just been unfortunately outplayed throughout that first 40 minutes. Whole heap of mistakes coming for them. And because of it, it's just meant that France, when they've had that attack, have been able to make the most of every opportunity. We have got a donation from Finton there as well. I believe, now is that a euro or a pound sign? I believe that's a euro, if I'm not wrong. I'm normally terrible with currency. 2:15 a.m. fair play, says Finton. Thank you very much. Yeah, we do normally cover all of the late night games on the channel. It's a weird 24 hours for us. We covered the game between New Zealand and Australia. We started that live stream at about 1 p.m. New Zealand time. So at the moment, we've been up for around 14 hours. We're going to be covering that next game taking place between Argentina and South Africa. Straight after that, we've got a podcast to film. And then after that, one of my friends is coming around and we're going to climb a hill, which I don't know why, but it seems like that's what's going to be the plan for the morning. And then I think watching something in the afternoon. So it's a hectic time on the old Kiwi Lads channel. So anyone who is new, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. You'll also learn that as we get further through the night and as the tiredness starts to kick in, my brain starts to malfunction a little bit and some random sentences will come out in terms of weird puns and all sorts. And here in Ireland, we use the Euro, says Richard. And before kick-off, France were 3-1 underdogs, says Charles. They were. And I was surprised by that because France, yes, they've made a lot of changes, but they are still a very well-oiled machine when they're out there on the field. The ref will help Scotland get back into the game, says Crumpus. I wouldn't guarantee it because he didn't help them in the first half by giving the yellow card to a French player that would have stopped one of the French tries. So I don't see it happening. To be honest, best option is is a good Scotland team. But if we're not up to scratch, let us be humiliated. There are too many show ponies in the Scotland team who love themselves. Says it was power by. I'm going into the World Cup with zero expectations and nothing above or anything above. That will be a bonus for Wales. I like it. It's kind of like looking at the glass half full or half empty. Instead, you've just drunk everything out of that glass and, you're hoping that someone will top it up. And Mount Up, says Blues Nate. And also Jalabert is kicking. He certainly is. Currently sitting 3 from 3. But in the second half, I don't see France making too many changes early on. I would say that they'll keep the same backline. Mofana is almost probably one of the more quieter players we've seen in the backline. And that is surprising to say because we've seen him maybe about 5 times throughout that first half. We've seen some great work, though, from Bryce Doolan joining in the line. Jalabert has been solid. And Kuyu has actually been very good playing at number 9. For this game, I'd bet $100 Scotland get helped, says Krampus. So you're saying 100, as in they win a penalty in that case? Or are you saying that the referee is going to give them that many penalties that they come back and win this game, Krampus? Because I guess there's a bit of a difference between one penalty or the whole game. And Mark Half Glass Empty War says Nuzzy Williams. Yeah, that was exciting commentary when we were hearing him, wasn't it? I still remember that series. It was actually... it was quite bad from him. He was always saying, he's looking at the negatives. I feel like I am one of those people that really struggle to look at negatives rather than positives. And I think it annoys a lot of people. Because if a team plays terribly, and I'm like, there's a little bit of something potential. People normally tell me to go and F myself is the best way of describing it. I'm saying the ref will make the game entertaining, says Krampus. And you're betting $100 that the ref will make it entertaining in that case. And reckon Gregor Townsend will be happy. Now he can drop Finn Russell from the squad, says Power Bite. Yeah, I wonder whether or not they will consider Kinghorn as an option at 10 and maybe someone else at number 15. Who would you go with as the Scottish number 15 if it's not going to be Stuart Hogg due to retirement? And France had amazing spacing in that first half, says Charles. Shortland Street on TV in New Zealand? I think so. I think it's still running. It's been on for a long time, hasn't it? I don't even know who's still on Shortland Street. To be honest, my sister used to watch it when I was a bit younger. So I probably knew 5 of the people. I think Chris Warner? Isn't he the main doctor guy who's had 57 wives? He gets around. Had money on France to take this one for days. Scotland are useless without Hogg, saving them in big games, says Mitch. And this French side plays like New Zealand. It's weird, probably because of their backline play, says Bullabro. And I've been a Scotland fan for 50 years. It's a bloody tough gig. I shudder to think how much money I've put into Murrayfield over the decades. We always manage to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, says John. Because when was the name change, John, of Murrayfield? It's called is it Scotland Gas Murrayfield or something now? Since when did Gas sponsor the field? Do let me know. I swear it wasn't like that for the Six Nations, so perhaps something a little bit more new, which you may have a bit of inside knowledge for. And Connor said, hi Amish, welcome in, mate. Hope you are keeping well. Just showing the highlights package of All Blacks versus the Wallabies. 23 points to 20 in that game This one, I'm hoping we can see a little bit of a comeback here from Scotland in the second half and make it a lot closer. But whether we do or not is going to be maybe a different story. Still Murrayfield, BT invested, says John Campbell. So still Murrayfield, but I guess they've got BT Murrayfield. Okay. Cool. Fair enough. I feel like a lot of stadiums are going down that route now, aren't they, in terms of a sponsor and the name of it. And the referee was all for Australia first half today. Second half, the ref was 100% for the All Blacks. Says Powerbite 92, so I guess it evened itself out quite nicely in a way then. And just happened a few weeks ago. Doesn't have the same ring as BT Murrayfield. Says username. I'm still going to call it Murrayfield. I don't need to give the sponsors credit, do I? I hope. Or else I might get myself in trouble. Currently 18 points difference between these two teams. Thank you, Hamish, for the commentary of all these games this weekend. It's much appreciated. Says Stuart Moore. Yeah, thank you all very much for being here for these games. It would be a whole different story if it was all by myself, me just doing the commentary. It wouldn't have that same feel as it does when you guys are always here. So I always say it, whether there's 5 or 500 watching, we always appreciate every single one of you for being here, for talking in the chat, for pretty much just making these games fly by and a lot of fun. Man, can't wait for the World Cups. Things getting exciting now, says Jaco Vandenberg. And a miss when the Aviva Stadium was Lansdowne Road. Says username, how you feel about the Timo being so hyper involved. Says Charles, it's one of those ones that I know that people were complaining about it for the Fiji versus Japan game. But the slight problem was every time the TMO got involved, they were correct in doing so. There was no decision that the TMO checked that didn't need to be checked. So it's a tricky one because in some cases, the TMO, if they leave something and they don't check it, people get angry. If they do check it and it's not something, people get angry. No matter what, people get angry. So it makes it very hard for the TMO in terms of how much they use it. But yeah, I mean, if the right decision comes from the TMO, I don't really have anything against it. It's just depending on how long it takes to come to that conclusion rather than watching the 50 replays. I've seen Scotland coming back from worse deficits, says Brian, and typical Scotland, says Dwayne, and Kinghorn is a better fullback than Hogg. Hogg played very badly these last 3 years. He was rubbish in the 2019 World Cup. Says Powerbite, but currently Scotland, they have got possession just outside of their own 22, needing a much better 40 minutes here than they did have in that first half. Now rolling it back, it will be George Horn. Did make his way on the field earlier due to Ben White's ankle injury. Hopefully nothing too serious. He does actually fire it back to Finn Russell, who puts the ball high. This one contestable, not taken cleanly by France. And now it's a knock-on from George Horn in the process. The hands letting Scotland down early on. And the second half, great run forward by the blindside flanker for France. There's no controversy. Having a TMO has led to fairer results and better quality rugby, says the conversation station. And you're a great commentator and it's fun to be here, says Richard. Thank you very much. Now Finn Russell charging forward. He needs to create some magic here. Darcy Graham got the inside ball. That's one of the first runs we've seen from Graham when he hasn't been inside of the 22. Now off to the left. Blair Kinghorn coming into fly half roll there. And Finn Russell was about fourth receiver. People support Scotland. People get angry. Says Powerbot, and great run there from Dawn van der Merwe. Looks like Denver Bumba's staying down with some sort of injury just for now, which does mean that Scotland are up against a 14-man France. Great run forward from Kinghorn. Moves up to the 22. One of the best attacking situations for Scotland throughout the whole game so far. Horn goes back across to Xander Fagerson. In behind Tui Pilotu. One more pass to Hugh Jones, who carves almost through. A lot of crucial tackles being made here from France. An advantage in favour of Scotland. Watson finds the offload to Matt Fagerson. Now charges forward. Tackled well by Jean Baptiste-Grue. Now a cross kick from Ben Russell. It sits up for Graham though. I think it's going to be put down, or is it? Tell you what, Graham's claiming it, although I thought that maybe Dumetier was able to get to it. They're going to check this one. Ben O'Keefe is unsure. I believe that this has a good chance of being a try for Darcy Graham. And George Horn is a quality scrum half. I rate him, says Powerbite. I think people are so arrogant we sit on our screens and demanding perfection from people, says James Cody. It's a tricky one because I guess with the world of social media, everyone has that ability of changing their name to something that isn't their actual name and being able to say whatever they want. And some things shouldn't be said. But because of the internet and whatnot, I sound like I'm 80. And I'm like, back in my day, we didn't have Wi-Fi. We had to go talk to people. I'm terrible at talking to people. That's why I do YouTube. Fun fact. Darcy Boy says, Blues Nate, they are just going to be checking this one, though, to see whether or not Darcy Graham was able to get himself the try here. The TMO. It's taking a while to load up here. Ben O'Keefe is saying, come on, hurry up. Crowd are getting restless. So Darcy Graham, he's got the ball down. Darcy Graham's hand on that ball. You can see why he was claiming the try. And, does he have downward pressure? He does eventually, but does he have downward pressure in the very first motion? This is the case of either way, both sides are going to be angry, unfortunately. But this effort here from Darcy Graham, that might separate from his hand. Now, he does force it afterwards, but was there that little tiny inch of separation for Darcy Graham? This angle will show it a lot better. So it hits his hand. It might have been knocked on. And then hits his wrist there for Darcy Graham. This is going to be an ugly one. The crowd are either going to boo their heads off a chair there. Heads off. And I like the way the TMO was used in the Under-20 World Cup. Referee had two views on the big screen. I read that one. Then referred to the TMO if the yellow needed to be upgraded to the red. And no try, says Ronald. I think Graham, for him, he would have felt like he did get that ball down, as it would have felt like one continuous motion. But I believe there might be just that little bit of separation there between Darcy Graham's hand and the ball at the time that it is forced down. And now, Ben O'Keefe. It's a try. The crowd were booing before Ben O'Keefe had even given the decision, and then they had the face turn of cheering for the man. But it's given as the try. Scotland get their first of the match. 8 points to 21. I don't feel bad for O'Keefe there. He was building into it. He was like, from when he started putting the ball down in the crowd, we're all shouting at him. And then as soon as he said, it's a try, and blew the whistle, he got very excited. Well, he didn't get excited. The crowd did. And get in there, says John. Now Finn Russell, the kick has gone over. That will make the score 10 points to 21. Same in the stadiums too. We shout at refs and demand 100% perfection. I think there is no right or wrong, says James Cody. For Afrikaans, South Africa, or South Africans, the Aussie Joe Roff sound scarier because Roff sounds like a word that means extremely tough guy, says Albert. And on your Darcy Boy, unbelievable, zero control, not a try. Says Mitch, wise decision, Ben O'Keefe, you live, says Kerno Wick. Yeah, certainly one that a lot of people have different opinions on in terms of that one. I thought that it might have been called as separation for Darcy Graham, but it is called as a try. They do play on, and the penalty goes against Scotland now early on, I believe, round the side. It was Xander Fagerson who's lost his footing. And now France, they've got the decision to make of going to the corner or taking the three. They are going to be going for the corner. It was great work from from France to be able to hold him up. Go Scotland the Brave. Says Dino plays YT. It must be the Blondes here. Says Blues Nate. And Chiseland's try 3 weeks ago was no try. Says Rooster. And also, for example, this ref will get stick for giving this try. Someone will disagree unless it's obvious, says James Cody. But then that's the thing. He would have got stick if he hadn't given it as a try as well. So unfortunately, there was a no-win scenario for the referee in that case. And the worst thing is, it's the TMO who did have the main say in that decision. What did I say, Irish, says Crumpus? You said the referee would be involved in the second 40 minutes, which I believe a lot of people were anticipating. Now, Sekou Makalu, ball has gone loose. And it's going to be the knock-on from France, 5 metres out from their own line now. Scotland have got their scrum feed. How good was the experimental All Blacks coming back from 17 points to 3? Says Albert, they did very well, but they needed to because a lot of people were predicting them to win that game by a mile, which I felt was a bit too generous in favour of that AB's team, definitely with making 12 changes in the starting lineup and also a positional switch of Will Jordan to 15, but it's his first game that he's played up against Australia that he hasn't scored a try in. So it's a bit unfortunate for him. He had a perfect record out on the right wing. They move him to fullback, and he doesn't get the chance. Joe Roff and Matthew Burke, absolute legends. There's Albert. And also we have got there, Roff was superb, and come on France, says Tony. Now, 5 metres, or in fact maybe a little bit closer to 10 metres out from their own line here. Scotland, George Horn, that's gone down in the front rows again. And it is going to be a little bit of pre-engagement. And Herbert, a legend as well, as Roff and Burke. Says power bite. Looks like Finn Russell will look to absolutely send this one downfield as far as he can. Does end up going into touch. It's going to be about 45 metres out. Now France have got themselves the feed. Or at least the referee was saying they had themselves the feed, but I believe it's actually supposed to be... Oh, it is France's throw. Never mind. Getting confused. These are the games. You need to try out things, not just go for the win. For Ireland later, be pushing for shots at goal as Sexton isn't playing, and the others need to build confidence. And I'm South African remembering what Australia used to be like, says Albert. Thrown in by Bergeret, nicely taken by Sekou Makalu. Now looking to use this one to the left-hand side. The back line from France has looked quick throughout this game. Rush defence there from Darcy Graham on Bryce Doolan, and the penalty goes the way of Scotland. Player leaving his feet. I believe it was the young number 14, and Darcy's on fire, says Mr. Fantastic AJ. Now Scotland looking to kick this one for the corner again. It will be about 10 metres out. We have got there to a collaboration watch-along with 2 cents, says James. We have actually done a collaboration with him before in the past. We've had him on the channel a few times. We haven't done a watch-along together. I know normally because of, Wi-Fi and trying to sync up games, it makes it just that little bit more challenging to do a watch-along over the internet rather than doing it in person next to each other. But he's come on the channel a few times in the past, old Mark. Now, nice run forward from, I believe it was Jack Dempsey. That was Cameron Walkie just collapsing over the breakdown. Please give the video a like, so many watching. I give Hamish some love, says Rooster. Another carry forward from Scotland, 5 metres out from the line. But France, Bergeret's over the ball and wins the penalty for France. That is a much needed one, as the momentum was just starting to go in favour of the Scottish. How far are you from 2 cents, says James Cody. He lives in Auckland. I live in the South Island, so about an hour and a bit flight by plane. Yeah, can't quite drive there because there's water in between. And like says Albert, and also rules should be applied. Ref or TMO personnel, view or crowd should not have influence. Do believe there are time decisions are made to make a game a spectacle. Believe some people even bet on it, says Ronald. Great work from Bergeret getting over the ball. Just locking that body in. Still only 11 points difference though between these two teams. 8 penalties against Scotland, 6 against the French. Seen a lot of possession in France's favour, although in the second half it's a little bit closer to 50-50. In fact, that one's going to be stolen by Scotland at line-out time, but unfortunately just tapped a little bit too close to the touchline from George Horn. Ball rolls out and France have got themselves a follow-up line-out. He's probably got a few more minutes than he was expecting, Horn, for this game due to that injury of Ben White. There's a nice steal there from Gray. Now, Richie Gray is still playing, but the other Gray brother, he is not, is he? He got quite a serious injury, unfortunately. In maybe the Six Nations? It might have been right near the end of that comp, or maybe it was actually after that he ended up with it. Now roll back for Kuyu. They've got Serun, who will be coming off the bench later on in the game. Kuyu now puts it high, being chased hard by the right winger. It's nicely taken by Duan van der Merwe. Now off to the right hand side. Skip pass there from Russell. Working nicely now. Big run forward from Kinghorn. I have to say, this attack at the moment... Oh, Bergeret took the knock to the nose. He is going to hold it and hope that the referee has a look at this one and they may go back to have a wee check. Duan van der Merwe, though. Another carry forward for Scotland, who do continue just for now. Finn Russell now looking to use this back line one more time. Great run forward from Scotland. Kicked him behind by Hugh Jones. Doesn't really have anyone chasing, but it's gone out a metre from the try line. The crowd are booing. They're saying maybe the kick wasn't the best option there. And the longest flight in Ireland is 40 minutes, says James Cody. And also they're watching the reply of Oz versus ABs now and listening to you while waiting for the bot game here in Pretoria, says Albert. Because that's the thing, the flight probably isn't the worst part of it. Like, the flight is pretty short. It's the driving for 3 hours to the airport for myself from where I am to be able to head to Auckland, because we would have to fly probably Christchurch to Auckland, which is around that 3 hours away. So that makes it a little bit more of a task. They are just showing there, Bugger, yeah, that's bad. From Xander Fagerson. The crowd are going to boo Bugger for holding his nose. Maybe playing it up a little bit, but he did take a lot of contact to that nose, and they may... See, that's head on head, and then the shoulder comes through. I think that this is going to end up being a penalty against France, if not maybe... a penalty against Scotland, maybe something even worse here. I think, unfortunately for us, Scotland will be a much bigger threat. Okay, it's going to be a yellow card. An on-field review we've just seen from Ben O'Keefe, which means for the next 10 minutes or so, they can make the decision to upgrade it to a red for Xander Fagerson, or if it remains as a yellow, he'll come back out onto the field after the 10 minutes. Who's your favourite in the NPC? I quite like watching Wellington play in the Bunnings NPC, to be honest. I think they've got a really nice mix at the moment, which seems a bit rough seeing as I am from the South Island, of course. I mean, Tasman are always one that are great to watch, but they're normally, they're sometimes a bit too strong. Lucky to be yellow there. Well, that's the thing. It's only under review at the moment, so that can be upgraded to a red card if the TMO do decide to upgrade it. I still tell people take the ball at pace, like Joe Roth. Says RJJ, I'm watching the replay of Oz versus ABs now and listening to you while waiting for bot game here in Pretoria, says Albert. Now come on, harden up lads, says Blues Nate. Our lucky brace is not the ref, says Jan. Now the ball is loose. I believe Scotland have been able to clean this one up, but with a man disadvantage, they will be looking to be aggressive while they have the 14 on the field. Try and cut down on this points deficit just that little bit more. Now it's going to be Finn Russell. Nice run forward from Sione Tuipulotu, and yep, can still get red carded, says Albert. Top 4 teams in the Rugby World Cup, says Joshua. To be honest, I think they've all ended up on the same side of the draw, and that is Ireland, France, South Africa, and New Zealand. Another knock on. And it becomes a penalty for France there for offside. A penalty against France for offside. Scotland get the penalty. Just say it's a business trip, says James there. Although it's the question of what game to do from here as well, seeing as probably with the fact that he lives with his wife and kids, he wouldn't be able to do a middle of the night game. So we'd have to look for a game during the day. So it'll probably have to be a Bunnings NPC match. Possibly, how many cups of coffee are you going to drink today? None at all. I'm only on the water at this stage. I've never actually tried coffee in my life, believe it or not. And everyone thinks that I lie about that. The only coffee flavoured thing that I've had is like a coffee jelly bean that wasn't actually coffee. Other than that, haven't tried coffee and also haven't tried tea either, which people look at me like I'm a weirdo. Now, Finn Russell, nice step from Sione Tuipulotu in the midfield. Now Russell going across to Blair Kinghorn with 14 men on the field. They are actually looking like they're playing with the 15 at the moment. George Horn back across to the right-hand side. Flat ball. Now Ewan Ashman. Darcy Graham charges up to 5 metres out from the try line. Another big run from Ewan Ashman. Gets a wedgie for his troubles. The ball has gone loose. And I believe France have been able to almost get that turnover, but it's bounced down on the side of Scotland. Pierre Schulman with the advantage. Was a double movement. They've called it as the try for the Scottish. And now They are back in this contest. New Zealand are second in the world rankings at the moment. France are third. Says Richard, energy drinks yet? Still haven't tried an energy drink, other than like a Powerade, I guess. But then that's probably more of a, I guess people would call it a sports drink, maybe. I don't actually think it's got caffeine in it that I know of. Not sure though. And glad to know I'm not the only one not drinking coffee or tea, says Freedom the Truth, or Freedom and Truth. And which part of the South Island you say? So I'm halfway in between Christchurch and Dunedin. Kind of smack bang in the middle of South Canterbury. Pierre Schurman. Great carry forward there from the big man. And love this new rule, says James. And I like this development using the TMO to review the card and let the game continue. They'll keep the momentum going in games, work well with the under-20s. And it is actually something that was trialled a bit earlier in Super Rugby Pacific. They did go with that same system. And that kick has gone over. Ben O'Keefe wants to have a bit of a conversation here with the captains by the sounds of it. He wanted the camera on him. I'm not sure what's happening here. He wants both captains. Is he going to be something about off the ball stuff or what's the go? We have got their chocolate. I have tried chocolate, yes. Although I don't think I've had chocolate in about a month, somewhere around there. Hamish, you just ranked that tadpole, says Kernowick. It's got to be good protein, doesn't it? And French 13 versus Scotland first, says Tony. Okay, so the reason Ben O'Keefe wanted the players to come together, it's a red card now for number 18, Xander Fagerson. So they have decided that there was serious enough contact to the head at speed that creates it to be a red card rather than a yellow. And it is for that shot on Bergeret charging in and smacking him in the nose with the illegal clean out. It was silly from Xander Fagerson, and it now means that Scotland are going to be playing with 14 men for the rest of the game, although it doesn't seem to have impacted them too much just yet, as they've actually get the better of the time that they've had 14. And let's go, the Landers fire up, boys, says Blues Nate. And also, we have got there, that's a big bottle of vodka. Jeez, tell you what, if that was vodka, I think at this stage I would be on the floor. Because that's like 1.5 litres. Well, 3:37 a.m. for you, says Robert. It is indeed. We've been up since about 12 New Zealand time, so we're pushing towards that 15-hour mark. And we're still going to be up for another maybe 12 hours. So we're around there. I'm on holiday, so I'm lucky enough to be sitting in the sun, drinking beer and listening to your commentary. Fagerson, same old, says John. Yeah, it's a mistake that Scotland couldn't really afford, although they have now got themselves the penalty from inside of their 22. Kicking that one into touch. Now the line out throw for the Scottish from the halfway line. And what time is the Wales game? So it will be 4:30 a.m. New Zealand time. So it does kick off in just under an hour's time, around 50 minutes or so. Will that red take Xander out of any World Cup games? It will depend on the seriousness that they do, I guess, determined for the challenge. It could be 2 weeks, which would mean he doesn't miss any games of the World Cup. If it's 3 weeks, I believe he would miss a little bit of it, though. So many games on today. I can't get to all of them. I had to work today, says Albert, but now nicely passed off to the right-hand side for Scotland. Sione Tuipulotu, another bit of crash ball coming from Scotland. They have got an extremely compact attacking line there for a second. And I'm wondering, they've got another advantage. Scotland definitely having the better of the second half. Now Finn Russell in behind. Blair Kinghorn close to the touchline. Finds the inside of ball away to Sione Tuipulotu. Now George Horn back again to Ewan Ashman. Skip pass goes off to Matt Fagerson. It's as if they needed that first 40 minutes to have that feeling out process. Then work out exactly what they needed to do. Kick him behind by Finn Russell. The chance for Duan van der Merwe, but he just pushes it into touch. Are you going to have a 25-hour day? Yeah, it does seem that way, but that's always the case with international rugby on, and then we'll be sleeping for a bit, waking up relatively early on Monday morning to go to work, and then also do the All Blacks squad announcement in the evening, pretty much straight after work. So a busy maybe 72 hours or so for us, but it happens. better to keep busy, I guess. Our ranking to me doesn't count. It doesn't matter if you're ranked 1,000. Any team can cause an upset on the day. Every team send their very best. Says Spidermic is the score 22 points to 21, so it is currently 17-21. And this one, there we go, it has just updated a little bit more. And Ray and Nephew, Oven-Proof White Rum, Drag Racer Fuel. Says Kerno Wick. That's an auto 3-match ban though, says Finton O'Mora. So yeah, he will more than likely miss one game of the World Cup. And Hamish, what's up? How's it going? Doing very well, Coding. Hope you are also keeping well. What kind of work do you do? Says Albert, so I do work as a builder during the week. Oh, I'm not very good at it. So luckily, I work with my dad, who's a much better builder than me. I just help where I can, pretty much. But then it also helps because due to being employed by him, it means that I'm able to maneuver my hours depending on what we're doing for the channel as well. No spoilers, but was Fiji-Japan, what was Fiji-Japan score not broadcasted here? Wait, so you don't want a spoiler, but you want to know the spoiler of the score? Rooster? Has it been changed to red? It certainly has been. But now we get to see Arthur Vincent make his way onto the field. That is for Demoutier. He's got 23 minutes now to try and get himself a spot in that France World Cup squad. This coming Monday is bank holiday in Ireland, so 3 days off work, yay, says Richard. You like Bob the Builder, you can fix it? Nah, I break it. My dad fixes it, I break it, he fixes it again. Best way of doing it. Oh, that ball has not gone in the way they would have liked here. And because of it, the scrum, it is going to be the free kick to Scotland for that ball not coming out the back. A red card might be the Scotland's advantage. They have to stay focused now. France seems to expect automatic victory because of the red card. Scotland's halftime talk was something special, says Mr. Fantastic. Delicates, says Rooster. And in future, will you start your building business or start your builder business from your dad? Not too sure. I'd have to do a little bit more building, I'd say, first, because I'm only really part-time during the week in between doing live streams. But then saying that, we've had so many videos coming out during the week, I've been working a lot less hours. And work is work, Hamish. Not like the lazy young buggers in the UK. Thank God for Poles and Hungarians. Over here, says Kerno Wick, they've still got the ball, though, for Scotland. 10 metres out from the line. Fire back across. They have made quite a few changes here. In terms of their bench, I believe that was Jamie Butty getting the chance, but the Scottish side at home now starting to really get behind their team. Going to the right, wide cut out pass to Kinghorn, breaks through the tackle, and it's another try for Scotland. They take the lead for the first time in the game now. No more predictable games, and that's great for the sport, says Yako, and we need some of that Scottish water down in Wales. Says Mr. Fantastic AJ. And who's got a red card? It was the number 18, Xander Fagerson, who ended up with the red. I want to know, but don't want to spoil it for others. Says Rooster. So yeah, it was a lot more one-sided than you'd expect, Rooster, in that contest. And a few people after the game would have been saying Bulavanaka Fiji. Maybe. And French trying to slow their momentum. And a blink and flip. He said trying not to swear. Says John. 20 seconds now for the kick to be taken. This game has changed completely in the first 20 minutes of the second half. Oh, we're going upstairs for a TMO decision. The crowd aren't going to be happy with Scotland, or 14 Scottish, 2 tries. Right. They're putting it on the big screen now. Hang on, that wasn't the TMO. What happened to Brendan Pickerel? He was in the TMO box, but now he is not. They're checking this one. Oh, no, it's a knock-on from Darcy Graham. That will be no try, ladies and gentlemen. And well done, Scotland, says Brian. You need Gandalf in Wales, never mind Waterbud, says Finton. Go, 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 Scotland, says Dino Plays. I believe they were already playing advantage for Scotland, so it will still be a penalty for Scotland, just not going to be the try scored as of yet. There's going to be no try, they've just said. Finn Russell trying to say that he regathered it, but then checking to make sure that they did already have the advantage. Damn, no try, says Brian. Okay, Ben O'Keefe just testing out the French, saying why it was a no try was for the knock-on. The crowd are booing, but there was That clear knock on. I see that now Jalibert has made his way off the field. Finn Russell looks like they are going to the corner once more. France are under huge pressure here in this second half. They haven't been able to find any of that momentum they had in the first. And like someone said earlier on, Scotland, they have come back from bigger deficits before. I mentioned about it at halftime as well. They just needed to start a lot better in the second half, but they have had a dream start to it, even with their red card being awarded. Dave Cherry fires the ball in nicely to Richie Gray. And now they start to roll this one towards the try line just that little bit more. 5 metres out for Dave Cherry, the Edinburgh representative, has now gone down to a knee. So I believe they will now have to use it. The ball's gone backwards, says Ben O'Keefe's George Horn. Goes across now to the number 17, Jamie Butty, or Jamie Butty, I should say. Nice run from Rory Darge. Horn looks to shift it. Inside ball from Russell goes straight to Darcy Graham, who is smashed. And the tackle by Paul Valimza. And France having to make quite a few changes because now they're at that stage of in that desperation of trying to stop this momentum that Scotland have. Darcy Graham almost able to go straight through. Oh, he's been picked up and dropped there. But they're going back for the original penalty again in favour of Scotland. And damn no try, Scots must be pumped now, says Richie. And also we have got there, this is why you don't celebrate the try. Get the number 10 to kick as fast as he can, then celebrates his Mountains of Asylum. And they closed the coal mines and farming went tits up, James, says Kernovic. And 20 minutes left and Scotland has made a big comeback. And now 10 metres out from the line, Dave Cherry takes the quick tap from straight out in front of the post. Scotland being aggressive here at the moment. George Horn goes across to Jamie Butty. Sounds like the TMO is in Ben O'Keefe's ear as well. We might even see a penalty advantage come again up against the French. Horn, one more to Finn Russell. Skip pass off to Darcy Graham down the wing. Just tackled in the field of play and manages to keep that body within the touchline. 10 metres still for Scotland as they put together some quick phases. Big shot on Jamie Butty. France have got the turnover in the breakdown. It's Pietro Malvaka who has been able to get in there. But the penalty goes to Scotland again for not releasing. And take on Eddie. Man with a plan, a man over his head. Says, or all man over his head. Says a rooster, and good job not squaring, John. Even if a string of oaths and naughty words was merited. Says Mountains of Asylum. But Scotland this time do decide to kick for the corner once more. Being aggressive throughout this whole of the second half and finding a whole new momentum that they just didn't have in that first match. It's been very entertaining to see, and hopefully they are able to continue that throughout the next half of rugby as well. Yellow carpet discipline, says James Cody. It will be getting relatively close for France. I think the benefit they've had so far is it has been for quite a few different penalties, such as that one not releasing, another one for offside. If they had 2 for offside in a row, I think it would be very close. And I believe the next penalty may even be that final warning, depending on what it is. Dave Cherry, the rolling ball, Scotland over again. And they've got themselves the lead now for the first time in this match. We said it a little bit earlier on. The try was disallowed. This time they take the lead, and it's Dave Cherry who gets over the try line. Enough penalties for a French yellow, says Brian. It's getting very close. It doesn't matter if they take the conversion anymore. It can still be chalked off, says Finton. That is true. Too many rules killing the spirit of the game. All about rugby. Now too many rules interfere, says Spider-Mick. And try, says Blues Nate. Of all the games of the USA, I got this on my TV. I'm ahead of you. No spoilers. TV is on mute. You are a better commentator, says Robert. Brilliant work from Dave Cherry. He's done that multiple times throughout the Edinburgh season in the URC. Does a little fist pump as well. He was hyped up with it. And so is all of Murrayfield. Scotland, they had such a brilliant lead. France had such a brilliant lead. Scotland had a mountain to be able to climb. And currently they're at the summit. But the job's not done yet. And come on, lads, from Wee Bonnie Scott lads, says Gordon. Well done, Scotland, says Brian. And Mountains of Asylum. And well, says Richie Nails. Finn Russell now to extend the lead to 3 points. Taking some deep breaths here. And the kick is drifting. The crowd were cheering, but it hits the post, comes back out, and the score will remain at 22 points to 21. France will win, says Tony. The betting odds certainly would have got a lot closer now that Scotland have been able to create the comeback that they have. But this game seems like it's going to be heating up for that final 15. I do still need to mention there is a rare card for Xander Fagerson, which means Scotland are playing with one less man out there on the field. But George Horn inside of the 22 currently for Scotland. They will be looking to shift this one off to the right. Rory Darge hits it up, and I believe they will be kicking for the touchline in the very near future. They have been told to use it. Ball is kicked high from George Horn. This one just staying in the field of play. Nicely taken out on the right wing by France. Now Kuyu getting it back across. That'll be Wardley with his first carry of the game. Kuyu asks for it quickly. Now Hastoy goes across, ripped away by Scotland, and it was Hugh Jones who gets the turnover, but this time it's knocked on by Scotland, and the play or the advantage, they say it was not over just yet, and now it will be going back for Scotland's scrum. Plenty wee drams of whiskey to celebrate tonight, a few mouthfuls of haggis. Says Gordon, and the URC is really helping to develop its players, especially since the South African teams have been taking part. Says Mountains of Asylum. Great work from Hugh Jones, ripping the ball right out of the hands. And then just the knock on from, I believe it was Galiton. Oh, okay, it's actually going to be a blue scrum here rather than a Scottish scrum. Crowd aren't going to be happy about that one, but the possession in the last 10 minutes, 93% for Scotland. 7% for France. How? How is it possible to have 14 men on the field and be playing way better than they did when they had 15? Kicks for territory, takes the penalty, control the game, says Blues Nate. Now that's going to be a little bit of a reprieve here for France, seeing as, like I mentioned, they've only had 7% of the possession throughout this first half of the game. Goes Scotland, my second team, my second home. Says Brian, and Scotland is proving it is impossible to predict a winner in the World Cup. It's great for rugby, says Freedom and Truth. The ball has gone in. It's scrum time for France. Passing across. Here comes Mofana. Charging hard, breaking almost through that tackle with Finn Russell, but makes a few extra metres in the process. Kicked in behind. Risky tactic from Hastoy, but Darcy Graham dragged down 5 metres out from the French line, from the Scottish line. Bit of a counter-ruck there from France. They aren't able to get it. Scotland now with Matt Fagerson. Cuts around the side of the breakdown with the pick and go. See what I mean? The TMO involvement. Says Charles. But in that case, it was the right decision made in terms of who knocked on what. I told you they would come back, says Brian. And Lazy Bro says Blues Nate. It's going to be kicked into touch, though. Could the Box take number 3 in the rankings if Scotland win? It would certainly help them out in that regard. And how much you think Stevenson and Finau booked a ticket to France? It's a tricky one to say. Depends on what kind of split the All Blacks are going to be looking at, but we will actually be going through who we think will be making it into that 23-man squad in the near future. 93%, that's amazing, says Richie Nails. And let's go Scotland, says Yellow Jacket. And come on Scotland, 14 better than 15, says Spider Mick. Now Sirin making his way onto the field. That is for Kuyu, who has had a good game, although he was a lot more prominent in that first 40 minutes. Keep possession, don't let France make on the man down, says Kernovic. Now Pieto Malvaka. It's one of the first throws we've seen from France from that man, even though he's been on the field for around that 20 minutes. The rolling maul defence so far from Scotland has looked relatively solid. They did actually score their last try off a rolling maul. The home side, France, now looking to creep forward just that little bit further forward. Serin goes across. Run from Mofana. Now Serran goes across to Tanga. Great work in the breakdown. Scotland almost had that turnover. Now Wardy once again hits the ball up 15 metres from the line. Tanga with a nice step again. Look for the offload. It was a risk and the reward was not there. Scotland end up in possession and kick this ball way down the park once again. Only 54 likes for the stream. 66% for a French win too, says Eric. And it's not over yet, Nailbiter, says Richard Nails. Certainly is. Great take there from Blair Kinghorn. He was on the retreat, manages to take the mark from inside of the Scottish 22. And now both sides have a chance to breathe just for half a second. And Scotland for the win, says Rooster. And the thing is, even if France get themselves a converted try in the near future, this game is still not over. If Scotland get the converted try, though, you would have to argue that that might almost just be enough to be able to get over the line. That one has been kicked downfield. No mark taken, no touch found due to the mark. Now Bryce Doolan. He's been non-existent in the second half, but he's decided to run it up rather than kicking. So it seems like France, they want to be more strategic with when they do kick this ball downfield, trying to hang on to it for as long as they can. That was a flat pass from Hastoy. Some of the crowd not too happy with it. Now Hastoy again goes across to Mofana, and the penalty goes the way of Scotland for obstruction from France. They will now get another opportunity to kick this one downfield. I may be wrong, but by the mention of the players' names, it sounds like Scotland are playing with a full-strength team. France have their second stringers. Says Johan, it is a little bit along those lines. Scotland went with very strong in this game. France decided to give a few more players opportunities. But in an international game of rugby, of course, every side has the potential of winning on any given day. I think both of these sides are proving that. I cannot mention the store. He begged me not to, but thanks to the manager who gave my wife and I a €200 crib for my son. It was slightly damaged, still good, but couldn't be sold in store. Says Mountains of Asylums. It's good news for yourself, getting yourself a bargain. And France making silly mistakes in 1 to 12. Says Blues name for the Scottish. Now Dave Cherry, 30 metres out from the line. Throwing this ball in nicely. And Matt Fagerson. It pops up, nicely cleaned up by Rory Darsh. Now offloaded back to Dave Cherry. And this rolling maul again for Scotland starts to march towards the try line, looking dangerous. Now across George Horn. It's going to be Redpath. What an opportunity for him for debut. And a match that is this close. France missing 14 starters, says Aaron. And goes Scotland from Ireland, says Ross. The penalty goes the way of Scotland again. They have to make a big decision here. Do you go for the 3 points to extend your lead outside of a penalty? Or do you go for the corner for the chance of being able to completely secure the game? Now it looks like Ben O'Keefe's going to be given a French player a warning here for so many infringements happening down this side. How many reds does Scotland have? Just the one. It was Xander Fagerson. And ever since that red card, Scotland have looked about maybe 200 to 300 times better than they did while he was out there on the field. And oh well, what happened? How is Scotland ahead again? I need some sleep. So here's Chronic. Yeah, Scotland doing very well. Looks like they will take on the 3 points here with Finn Russell. That would give them the 4-point lead heading into the final 8 minutes. And one red for Scotland, says Yellow Jacket. Russell's kicking so far today has been pretty successful. He's only missed the one kick that did end up hitting the post. It was the last conversion attempt that he had. This one from about 23 metres out should be relatively safe for Finn Russell here. 26 metres out, 93% predicted success rate for this kick. And from here, the historical rate for all kickers is 91%. In other words, this should go over. Russell now taking the kick. And it's gone over. Scotland extend their lead 24 points to 21 now. 25 points to 21 with only the 7 minutes remaining. But I mentioned that possession stat earlier on. 93% in favour of Scotland throughout that last 10 minutes. This is where France have to make sure they're getting the ball, and they've actually gone with a different kickoff attempt. They went short to see if that had a better chance of them retaining. Was not the case in the end, and Horn now fires it back across for some of the big forwards for Scotland. Back across to Russell, who goes for that kicking tactic. It's gone high. Looks like it's going to be slapped back by Scotland, and Darcy Graham ends up in position. He got the knee down, So it does mean that they do have to release him. Short ball from Dage off to Dave Cherry. Now Russell looking for his kick downfield again. Straight to the French fullback, Bryce Doolan, who looks for the kick of his own. Drifting towards the touchline, and Russell will take the mark. A little bit of time using up here from Scotland. Clean up in the bar required. I'm being looked at by a lot of Greek and other nationals as I'm jumping around like an idiot. Get in, says John Campbell. And hold on, Scotland, says Kerno Wigan. 3 points forces France to go for a try, says the Mountains of Asylum. Very true. And now Doolan taking it nicely at the back. 45 metres out from Scotland's line here. Serran goes across to Pietro Malvaca. Now that's the thing. There are still more than enough potential winners for France in their back line. In their forward back, kicked him behind again. And it drifts into touch about 30 metres out from Scotland's line. Come on, says Gareth. We've got to win this, says Knox. And at the press conference, Eddie Jones reckons Wallabies will win the World Cup because they narrowly beat them by the ABs. Yeah, right, says Spider-Mick. Although you have to admit it's a lot better performance this week from the Wallabies than what we saw in their last game. So if they can keep on making improvements, maybe they do well in that upcoming Rugby World Cup. Dave Cherry now throwing the ball in, taken by Matt Fagerson, which makes the crowd very happy. But there is a knock-on from Scotland, which now gives France another opportunity, being only about 25 metres out from Scotland's line. That was a time that they could not afford a mistake. I'm getting too excited at the moment. I'm forgetting how to speak. So I do apologise for that. Come on, Scotland, got to hold out, says Daniel James. And my land, my blood, my colours, come on, Scotland, says Warren. And come on, Scotland reserves. Never heard of Cherry, but he's brilliant, says Knox, haven't you? Dave Cherry, he's had many tries for Scotland in the past and also playing a lot of his rugby for Edinburgh in the URC. The game is over, says win there. And anyway, Scotland win 25 points to 21. Update the score, please. It does actually still have it sitting this. It's an online scoreboard, so hopefully it does update relatively soon. A prediction for the Wales game, I think England with the narrow victory for that one. But, if this game's anything to go by, anything can happen. Now, Serran going to be putting that ball in. And now, nicely run forward by the French number 14. Serran again going across. I believe that is now Cameron Walkie, who hits the ball up. Redpath trying to get onto that ball, but just loses his footing. France with 3 minutes remaining. The chance to attack. Pietro Malvaca. Great run forward. Cameron Walkie goes to the short side here. Another big carry. And currently France, every time that they pass, they make 1 or 2 metres. Serran, has he been played? No, it is going to be play on. Now the big man for Paul Valimza. The number 19 advantage now goes the way of France for not rolling away, although I feel like that ball was accessible for the French. They have to go for the corners. History books won't say B team, says Gareth there. And also we have got there, always a B team, your team name is France, says Wind. And also prediction for the Wales game, and good luck Wales and England to lose to Wales, says Knox there. And how's the game looking compared to the Southern Hemisphere teams who played a few games now? We've got to remember this is France's first game back into international rugby since February, so they haven't played in a long time. Scotland played last week up against Italy. The second half, they've looked a lot better than they did in the first, but there's some decent moments being shown by both of these two teams. But Pietro Malvaca now 5 metres out from the line. France throw it into the front. It's nicely taken by Tanga, and it was a good engagement from Scotland to be able to shut it down nice and early. They're getting driven towards the touchline. They will have to use this one off the back with Wardy. Now, around the side, Tanga runs into his teammate. Probably a little bit lucky that Mofana wasn't penalised for obstruction. Big driving tackle there from Rory Dash. Serran now 100 seconds remaining in this contest, ladies and gentlemen. Another advantage for the French due to the offside. Going short side. Serran looks for the kick in behind, and it's almost put down, but I believe it's in touch. And they'll go back now for another penalty to the French. And like most Scots, I support two international teams, Scotland and whoever is playing England, says John. But just enough on that from Blair Kinghorn to stop the try from being scored. The penalty for France. I think Bryce Doolan trying to say there might be time wasting going on here from France. But they play rugby all year long. No excuses, said Wind. And I was like, come on, boys. You got this, says Blues Nate. They're going to take on the scrum. Now, that is a big decision. Cameron Walkie saying, why aren't we going the line out? And I'd have to agree with them. We've seen scrums be 50-50 throughout this game. We've seen teams who have the feed who have been penalised. And that could be the case for France here. I guess it lures in a few more defenders, keeps you away from that touchline as well here. But 30 seconds remaining in this first game of the summer, or first game of the Summer Nations Cup for France. It'll be a big opportunity here for them to have one last attack. And Oosh says Blues Nate, Scotland always starts slow, says Daniel James. And France first game must have impact, says Albert. Beserin feeding the ball in. And as the 80-minute siren is just sounding, Scotland, they have to try and defend with everything that they've got. It's gone down in the front rows. And it's going to be a free kick now for France again. Or it's going to be actually a scrum reset. These scrums have been so risky throughout this game. I wouldn't be surprised if Scotland get themselves a penalty in here. And home crowd says Blues Nate. And also we have got there a history, mate, the old enemy, says John. And Scotland had a solid Six Nations, says Yeda. And France haven't scored in the second half yet, says Brian. True. And what a time to do it if they're able to, though. 81 minutes through this contest. Like they're saying, they're in the red numbers. Gregor Townsend's already standing. So is Guthrie. Now, Serin. They might target the short side here, but they can't risk going into touch. Serin puts the ball in once more. It's gone down in the front rows, advantage. And it's a penalty to France. That doesn't change too much. I believe that they will still end up going with the scrum once more. But this is so risky going with that scrum because of how much we've seen it go down throughout this match. We haven't had one successful scrum in this game without an advantage or a penalty going to one side. And that is the way it is currently continuing. I know that Cameron Walkie wants it to go to the corner. But it looks like France are once again going to go for the scrum, or are they? No, they kick for the corner. Bryce Doolan. Here we go, 5 metres out from the line. And it has gone into touch. The last chance for France. 82 minutes through this fixture. Distance from the line, only that 5 metres. And Pieto Malvaka has now got to get this line out straight. Scotland joined the rolling ball at the perfect time for the last one. They've done the same here, pushing it towards the touchline here, Scotland. But it looks like France have looped around. Where's the ball? It's gone down. It's available at the back for Serin. 10 metres out from the line. Paul Valimza with the big bump off of Finn Russell. France need to shift this one wide, but instead it's going to be Hastoy straightening with the run. Pieto Malvaka now crashes forward. Hastoy starting to lurk a little bit wider. They also have Bryce Doolan out on that side, as well as the number 13, almost the turnover for Scotland. In fact, have they got it? It's the penalty to the Scottish. And they will walk away with the victory in the Summer Nations Series. And they are missing their first 15, Brian, says Finton. And I'll say it again, nobody will remember these games after the World Cup, says Albert. Although it's certainly one of those games that certain players can step up and get themselves a spot in that squad. And I feel like that turnover from Rory Darge possibly has just put him a little bit higher up the pecking order. A W is a W. That's what will go down in the history books. Well done, Scotland. Well done from a Cornishman, says Kerno Wick. But down 21 points to 3 to come back and win at 25-21. France left scoreless in the second 40 minutes. An absolutely brilliant performance from Scotland in the second half, even with that red card of Xander Ferguson. This is a big wake up for South Africa. Says Rudy there. A nice one, Scotland. Says Alpharis. And 14 Scottish boys destroying the French. Says Blues Nate. And a rugby history. Div. Says Kerno Wick. And yes, Scotland fantastic. Says Brian. For these two sides, they will be going head to head next week. Taking place in France. We will be covering that game on the channel as well, ladies and gentlemen. So anyone who's new, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It's been hugely appreciated you all being here for this matchup. It's been an extremely entertaining one. And I can only hope that the next game that we cover between South Africa and Argentina is somewhere around as entertaining as this 14-player comeback, says Knox. Great live stream, mate. Thank you very much. Hugely appreciated. Well, second team of France, says Spy Cos. And that will be now the second defeat that France have had of their last 19 games. The only other side to be able to do so was Ireland in the Six Nations. Like people have said, the history books don't tell you who the players were in that starting lineup for the two teams. It will go down as history as a Scotland win over the French. And why no yellow for French penalties? Says Crumpus there. I think that the reason that they got away with it in some regards is because there were so many different penalties given. Some for offside, some for not releasing in the breakdown. And then also different ones in through the side and that kind of thing. And I love the stream, mate, says Daniel Jones. Thank you very much. Thanks, Hamish. Are you covering Ireland versus England next week? I believe next week it's Wales versus England, if I'm not wrong. And yes, we will be covering that game on the channel. Look out, South Africa and Ireland, says Salvatore. Not exactly France's best side. These are warm-up games, remember, says LB. And well done, Scotland. 15 players for Scott, including the ref. Every penalty gifted, match completely given to them, says Mitch. And with a red card in this game, Scotland, we've got to remember, playing with the 14, making it tricky. I see Finn Russell has got a number 10 kit on, maybe, for the French. Well done. Good on you, Scott. Ka kite Hamish. Until then, adios and great game. Great stuff, Scotland, says Stuart Moore. And France with the Summer League NBA roster, says Jeff C. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, the next game that we have got, we are starting the build-up for that fixture. And it will be taking place in only 45 minutes' time. That is South Africa versus... No, that's a lie. It's actually an hour and a bit's time that we will be doing that next one. Group B will give us plenty of entertainment. Says Yako, it certainly will. But yeah, a live stream for that live one will be actually at 5:30 a.m. New Zealand time. So in about an hour and 15 minutes. So anyone who hasn't already hit that subscribe button, in that live stream, we will also give you updates of all of the other international games that are taking place around the world, including England taking on the Welsh. That game's going to be kicking off in 15 minutes' time. We won't actually be doing that one on the channel, unfortunately, due to the overlap, and we do need to get some food before the next one. Leave a like, boys, and sub if you haven't. Says Bullabro and 331 watching, only 82 likes. Man deserves more likes. Great commentary, says Greg there. Thank you very much, mate. Hugely appreciated. Nonetheless, I do thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy this stream, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you all for the next one in an hour and 15 minutes. South Africa taking on